How's it going, Diana?
Okay, there we go. It's going great, thank you.
Hello. How's things?
Well, now since it's almost Christmas break, it's a little stressful, but trying to
I
make it
bet.
through.
I bet. Whereabouts are you coming to us from?
Denver, Colorado.
Oh, very nice. Very nice. I'm sure things are getting a little chillier and
Oh yes.
winter like.
Now we did had a warm winter in the beginning, but now it's now cooling down, so it's actually feeling nice now.
There you go. There you go. That's awesome. Well, I'm Kyle. John is right next to me somewhere on the screen here for you. And we're delighted to have the opportunity to chat with you and learn a little bit more. So why don't we start? We did see some of what you had shared with us, but why don't you tell us a little bit about you, your context, and the pebble that's kicking around in your shoe lately?
So, basically, I've been a teacher for almost 10 years now, and I've taught high school. I usually teach middle school or high school math, and this year is my second year in teaching high school. We have a small group of students, but and the curriculum, we're using a curriculum called CPM, and it's called Core Connect. It's by Core Connections. So I'm trying to figure out with high schoolers, especially when they lost the 2 years during the pandemic
Mhm.
of their education, and now it's like trying to bring in those 2 years that they lost, but also, getting them back on track from where they at right now. And it's a little difficult because I'm trying to figure out how to grasp that knowledge and also get them engaged more. Because with high schoolers, it's like the one question is, what do I need this for? If I'm going to college, or why do I need this to learn? Why I need to learn this math for whatever job I get, or how is this going to help me in life? So I'm just trying to figure out what I can do to interest, because I try to like hands-on like activities and stuff, getting them move around. They like that, but like the group of students that I have, because it is a small group of students, but I'm just trying to see what I can do to um they like to be challenged, basically. So like how I can challenge them with pretty much challenge them with the concept they lost and bringing it in with the new concept, really.
So it sounds like to me that you're working with some students. It seems like if I think innately humans do enjoy being challenged. However, a lot of times students, especially students who have had some struggles, oftentimes they like to maybe either hide that fact or maybe they even use it as a bit of a bit of a barrier to kind of
Hmm.
separate them from the challenge or the way they feel when they're struggling with the mathematics.
Hmm.
It sounds like though you've got some students who, although they're having some struggles with the mathematics, that their mindset is still, fairly growth mindset, that they do enjoy the challenge, that they do want,
Right.
to do some thinking. So I wonder, what have you done so far that, in order to try to meet that challenge while also doing the very hard task of trying to also meet them where they are on that
Right.
journey.
Basically, because we with this new curriculum that we have, it's it's a little confusing. So, I've only got to basically about like geometry, so like with angles and triangles. I was able to teach that concept, but it's basically I've been doing hands-on activities, or I let them walk around the classroom to. They're doing like a gallery walk of. Creating proofs, and assisting each classmate, like collaborating with their classmates and stuff. So with 80 minutes in a class, it's like you have like with this amount of time, it's like basically it's not really a lot of time, but it's like trying to get them to settle down and then crunching stuff. So and plus this year I came into the classroom a little late, so it's like trying to pick up the pieces from the few weeks that when I started a little late. So that's also, and then trying to get the organization into the classroom also.
Okay. Do you mind helping me? And you may have said this early on, and I may have been trying to, piece together some of the other details that you were sharing, but are you the only teacher in the class, so you're teaching the entire group, or are you coming into the classroom as a sort of intervention teacher, or paint
Oh,
me on that?
I'm actually a math teacher for 10th grade, and I teach 10th grade math. We do have two other math teachers, but they have a class right now, so that's why they couldn't join in. But so yeah, so I don't really have anybody else that comes in the classroom to assist me. I mean, sometimes I do, but it's not like a daily thing.
Awesome.
Mhm. Mhm.
I'm wondering what would that then look like? So I got the sense that yes, you're in there, you're leading the group. You have some students with, it sounds like, varying levels of readiness, right? And
Mhm.
and you cited COVID as potentially, not helping, we'll put it that way,
Right.
right? Whether that was the reason or whether, it definitely wasn't contributing or a positive factor. Um,
Mhm.
so you have 80 minutes. What does that look like so far in, like a day to day? And I'm sure that every day isn't exactly the same, but if you could, in general, sort of summarize, like, what does a math block look like, that 80-minute math block? What's happening? How does it look and sound? And then we can, kind of dig in from there, just to give us kind of a picture of what that looks like.
So basically, so when class starts, they walk in, they do their warm welcome. So like the bell ringer, I give them 10 minutes for that. Usually during that time period, if I have an announcement about like late work or a test or something, I usually do that while they're doing their warm welcome. Then when they're done with their bell ringer, then they write the CLO for the day in their notebook, and then they sit patiently, and then I get to them. Then I'll start the lesson by introducing, like I usually introduce like background knowledge in regards to the lesson. So like for example, yesterday we talked about dilations. So yesterday I discussed about like transformations, the other different transformations that we already covered, and then also use like the history of dilation, like with like pictures and how to expand pictures, stretch it out, and then like billboards. So I basically use that, and also with a pantograph. Like I introduced that, like how they use it back in the day. But so we get on topic about just to grasp their knowledge. And then when it comes to the curriculum, I actually make their notes. So because with the curriculum, it's just a large chunk of stuff. So like I break it down and pull stuff that I feel that they can learn from, and then I make my own notes for my students. So because if they see all this work, I already know they're going to shut down. If they see all like, especially because it's a lot of words, basically. So I know they're going to shut down with that. But so then yeah, we just go over the notes. We go one out the first when I introduce the lesson. I first show them how dilation works, and then I give them another one. Then they do it as a group. Not all of them work as a group. Some of them like to work independently, but some do like to work in a group. Um, then after that, we'll go over it, and then it's usually like right after that. That's when I lose them because
Mm.
then when we're going into something else, then it's like, okay, I know how to do this. What is next?
Yeah.
So
So like are you feeling like you lose them because it's like the direction part is over and it's like now it's time for you to do some thinking or some work on your own, and like, yeah, we got this, we're moving on.
yeah, right, yeah,
It's like, oh, because you're not telling me specifically what to do, when to do it. They
right,
think they can sit back and go, hey, I'm done. I've done my
yeah,
duty. I followed the teacher's instructions.
right,
Now I'm like, hey, I'm over, and I'm not going to do any work on my own. And until you tell me what the next thing to do is, and I can do that.
right.
Is that kind of summarized like where
That's
you're losing
basically
them?
it. Yep, yep. Because like even at the end of class, when I give them their exit ticket, yeah, it's like pulling teeth to get them to do their exit ticket. So,
So
and
like, would it be
they have
safe? Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I said they have like even 10 minutes at the end of class to finish their exit ticket. And yeah, they don't even do that.
Right. So it's safe to assume that they're just not seeing the value to themselves in say that part of the lesson and that part of the work. Is that would you say that's true?
I would say that's basically it. Yep.
Would
Because
you
when they
yeah.
work with me, it's like they're great. That when they work with me, or like if I get them interacting with their classmates, with me walking around, and also doing some talking in regards to the lesson, they're great. But then as soon as I said, okay, let's try these on your own, it's out the window.
So now, no, like you recognizing that, like what would you say so far in that moment, knowing that that time is coming, and in that moment's coming where I'm done my examples or I'm done my lesson portion, and I know that they're going to shut down there, or they're just going to not, they're not going to continue. What have you done, let's say, so far to kind of like either keep the thinking going in that stage, or mitigate the experience that you're saying is the struggle?
Sometimes like I reroute by doing another activity, so to get them to move around and interact with their friends, or a lot of the times because they do IXL lessons, so a lot of the times they just say, okay, I'm doing my IXL lessons, so I'm done. So if they're busy at least doing work, I said, okay, that's fine, because I still have the students on this side of the room that's wanting to learn and wanting to move on. When I have this side that's where they shut down, and then it's like trying to bring them both together really, so I can just teach both of them at the same time. But instead of it just being one or two students, it's like 5 or 6 students.
Right, right. Now I'm wondering, early on in the lesson, there's, a number of things going on. So, you're structuring your lesson first. I want to make sure we're 100% clear here. The way you're structuring your lesson is a pretty common way to structure math lessons. John and I structured our lessons this way for a long time, and we experienced very similar results. We experienced this sort of like, you almost want to stretch out your lesson. Like you look at the
Right.
clock and you go like, oh, there's, 35 minutes left. It's like, if I stop now, the kids will stop now. And now we have 35 minutes of like, what are we going to do? Because I know what the result is going to be when I sort of turn over, the responsibility to the student.
Exactly.
So I'm wondering if we were to like, up until the end of that lesson, if we could kind of zoom out on the structure that we used for many years, and it sounds like you're using as well, is there anything we could change or maybe consider tweaking in that lesson structure that might allow for students to be given more responsibility earlier in the lesson rather than sort of waiting until the end? And, so I want to throw that to you and just kind of like see if you have any like thoughts on that, or maybe you've tried some things and maybe they had some success, maybe they didn't, but what are you thinking when I share that idea around this responsibility piece, and kind of almost like tapping students to be a little bit more, in responsible or in, control, let's say, of the learning
Right.
earlier?
I think that'll be actually, I haven't tried something like that because, like I'm usually used to the same, step by step of teaching a lesson, guided a whole group, guided instruction, independent, so forth. So like I'm used to doing that. And, but if I give them a responsibility in the beginning, because I mean, they already have their responsibility of doing their bell ringer, but it's usually like questions that they already know how to do, so they know they can get that done within a breeze. But when it comes to responsibility of doing work and learning to with stuff related to the concept, then I think that would be very helpful. I'm just trying to see like how to give them the responsibility in the beginning of the lesson.
I love it. I
I
love it.
was Yeah, because I was thinking that about that shoe is like, how can you chunk up, portions of your lesson to account for, maybe mini instruction, try this, try this on your own, mini instruction, try this on your own, mini instruction, try this on your, or reversed, try this on your own, mini instruction, try this on your own, mini instruction, try this on your own, mini instruction, until the bell, ends. And then by the time that happens, but you've covered your 80 minutes and they got practice embedded throughout in these ways.
And another thought I have for you as well, that could be a good maybe thought, and then we'll also share some potential resources for you to kind of dig in a little deeper with, sort of what we're saying here is, imagine, and this would be hard, like it's not like when we make changes, one thing we have to recognize before we try to make the changes is that small changes sometimes can eventually lead to big results, but sometimes they don't lead to a whole lot initially. Big changes sometimes are faced with like pushback right away, right? So when you're thinking about some of these changes and just kind of recognizing that sometimes changes can take time. We can also get, humans in general, specifically students who have been learning, say in this model, right? Like they've come to know this isn't just a you problem in grade 10. They probably learned in a similar model to this in grade 9 and in grade 8 and grade 7. And all the way through, they've probably gotten, I'm going to say, away with it, because what I mean by that is that they know that we as educators are here because we care about them, and we don't want to see them in pain, suffering, not learning, not, feeling bad about themselves. Like we want them to have this outcome, right? It's just like, if you're a parent with my kids, it's like, sometimes it's like, I'm like hard on my kids because I want what I want for them. They don't realize they want for themselves yet. And, obviously students have this same challenge. So what I wonder is, you've got, say, this time for a bell ringer at the beginning of class. Again, I use that for a number of years, but I wonder if like we start to shift when we ask students to start doing some of the thinking. And if we were to ask them to actually do some thinking, and we were to give them something that they can openly think about, that's low floor enough for them to think about, instead of it being, sort of just like, say, a practice problem, everyone gets the same answer, we all follow the same steps. If I know the steps, great. If I don't, I shut down at that point. To give them something that they're able to actually inquire about, investigate, even if it's estimating, like getting students to have to do some thinking, even if it's not taxing thinking, right? So some of the strategies that John and I have used over the years is, one is making predictions and estimating early in the lesson. So that's something that can be really helpful, because you're not wrong, you're not right. It's hard to know, the student who's always finishing their, their math lesson or their math homework first, they're not able to kind of cut it all off, because they race to the answer. It's like, no, it's actually an estimate, and there's no way for them to know specifically whether they're right or not. Giving them that opportunity to engage and to think and to share some of their thinking can be a really great step. And then also, if that's working, like that might be a first step. But then if that's working, it's like, what is it that I'm trying to learn today or uncover today? And is there a problem that I can give students up front without me teaching them anything, that they can take a good shot at and they can get started? Doesn't mean they have to finish it. It doesn't mean they have to know the algorithm to get there, but that they're able to actually engage in some of that thinking, which also guides you to know, what do they really need to know? Like, where are they? Like, what do they have with them? And what, can we build on here, so that when I do my part, where I want to try to help fill in some of the blanks, it's almost like they've already done some of the thinking. It's not me kind of doing all of the thinking for, say, the first 60 minutes of class, and then leaving them, 20 minutes to now start thinking, right? Like for a lot of kids, it's like they were shut down for a long time, right? And they're like, I'm not going to start the engine now. There's only 20 minutes left.
Exactly.
So when I give you like even just some of those small ideas, maybe small changes in the, hopefully to flip some of that, really what we're addressing is this concept. We like to call it the real flipped classroom, where basically what we're saying is like, how can we give more responsibility to the students earlier in the lesson and save our responsibility to help clean up the mess? Instead, because what we do traditionally is we try to clean up a mess that hasn't actually happened yet. So we come in and we go like, don't open the fridge, carelessly. Don't grab the milk with your, with one hand, like grab the can, because the milk might spill. And we tell them all the ways to make sure that we avoid the milk from spilling, but they haven't spilt the milk yet, and we do this in math class quite a bit, when in reality, if we kind of pause for a second, we go, what if we let them spill the milk in this lesson? Like give them a little bit of opportunity, a little bit of time. And then not only does that tell us where there's a mess to clean up, it allows me to be more targeted. So they've taken responsibility to do some of that thinking. And then I take the responsibility and I have to build this trust with them that they know that I will make sure to help them clean up the mess after. But it will take time, because at first they're probably going to push back on you, right? They're going to go, whoa, 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 whoa. You're supposed to teach me for 60 straight minutes so I know what to do. Even though up to this point, every time you do that, I don't actually respond. I shut down. But that's what they're going to do, and that's what they're going to try to do. But if you can kind of build that out of them and kind of like, almost like lure them in to doing a little that thinking earlier in the lesson, and you doing more of the thinking maybe later, then you can start to see a dynamic slowly shifting.
Okay. That makes sense. That does make sense a lot. Yes.
Diana, what would
like you said, because they already know the routine, that like the last 20 minutes of class, like, okay, I'm done. Like you said,
yeah, it's break time in their mind, right? They're like, I've had break time at the end of math class for 10 whole years, since grade one. I've been doing this, the teacher stopped talking and I'm done, and in reality, we're going, who did all the thinking here? It sounds like, it sounds like Miss did all the thinking today, and you did it for good reason. Again, I want to make sure we're clear here. You're doing that because you care about kids, and you're going, this is how I was taught, and I guess I've got to do it that way too. And it worked for you. You made it through, right? But for a lot of students, I'm going to argue that they might not have made it through, even though they were sitting in the desk next to me when I was a student.
So yeah, I definitely like that. And like you said, like give them the reins, because then it can actually help me see what they actually know how to do, and then challenge them themselves by giving them the reins of the lesson, by trying the lesson out on their own. And because like, who knows, like maybe they do know this concept, and then also give them something challenging too with that. So yeah, that sounds, give them the responsibility. Yeah, I like that idea. So
awesome.
I already have like ideas in my head of what to do.
Perfect. What would you say is your, your immediate next step if you're going into the classroom tomorrow, let's say, or later today? What would be your, your next step, or your first action item?
Well, first I would have to plan this, but my first step, of course, like still get them to wake up when they walk into my classroom. I'll still do the bell ringer, but then also I'll continue with the responsibility because when I give them their notes, then that's when they can actually work together and work as a team to come up with ideas how to, like, for example, like with dilation, come up with ideas of how they can dilate the shape, and basically have them basically communicate with each other how they can make it, big, if I give them a scale factor, and how they can make it bigger and stuff. So just like you said, like give them the responsibility of working it out themselves, really. And then like you said, just come around and make sure everybody's okay and their area is clean and stuff. And then just, give them their floaties when they're swimming, just a little bit at a time. So
yeah, I love that. It's like we don't have to throw the safety devices away, in the garbage can. it's like, we just hold off a little longer, right? We're like,
Right.
are they really choking? Are they really drowning?
Right. Exactly.
And it's like, they are. Okay, now it's time for us, but
Right.
until they're really drowning, right? We want to make sure, like, I think, that gave me a great visual. The floaties is a great visual of, like, for many years I was there and I had them all in there. It was like, almost like, are you even swimming, or are you just, floating
Right.
on the pool? Because I've got all, all the mats out there and everything there to make sure that you don't potentially, have your head go underwater at all. Right. So that sounds like a massive takeaway. We appreciate you taking some time here today. And can we ask you then one question that we ask on every episode of the podcast that we usually do at the beginning, but we didn't know it was going to be a podcast episode? Can we ask you, what do you think is the math moment that comes to mind for you personally? It can be through your own experience as a student, but it could also be something else in life. Like when you hear math class, what sort of like moment comes to mind for you? It can be positive or negative.
Um,
From your own experience,
One thing I can remember is when I was a kid, I had a really cool math teacher, and it was basically, well, it was a self-contained class, so like you actually have more time. You can like spend more time on this subject instead of, and then just make up this subject the next day or so. But it was always, she always did it where it doesn't matter. We always were working in groups and like working with the partner. So basically, we had to lean on each other. And two activities she did. One was we had to build a bridge out of toothpicks, and we had to see like how strong it, like how many bricks can hold this bridge up and without breaking. So that was a real, and that was, and I think I was like in sixth or seventh grade. So that was a lot of knowledge and um, real world situation, really. And another one was where she actually made us seem like adults, and like we were running our own business. Like I remember I had a daycare center, so like I was billing everyone for their weekly daycare amount and stuff, and then we had like cars, and then if we had a boat, and then we had to make payments. So then that's really how I actually, well, really learned how to budget money in
I
like my
love it.
life. So, but I
Yeah.
remember that class when I was younger. It was very, I was very prepared for the real world. So,
I love it.
You,
Well,
I was just gonna say, do you, thinking about those experiences, do you see how maybe, the fact that you said these things when these are the first things you thought about math class, like, do you think those experiences had any effect on the way you teach class now?
oh yeah, I think so because I always want to get my students like engaged with each other and stuff and have them working with each other. So I feel like I always try to do a project. Like in my many years of teaching, I always do a project each quarter, each 9 weeks. I always have a project for my students to do. Like one last year, even though it was I taught science last year, but they were actually the teachers and they had to come up with their own lesson plan. They had to write a lesson plan. I gave them a template. They had to come up with their own CLO and everything and find the standards. And I taught eighth grade last year, and they actually had to teach the lesson as teachers. And so that was they had a kick of that. My students really enjoyed that. So they actually were got to be in my shoes for a little bit and saw how hard it was. So, but oh yeah, like I just want and then have the students and because one thing I do remember for when I was doing those years when I was in school, state testing wasn't really like talked about a lot.
Right.
Like we knew we had to do it, but it wasn't like um the main thing on our mind because like
Right.
right now it's like okay we got to do this because we have to get ready for state testing or we got to crunch this in because this is going to be on state testing. So I think that's one issue is that's what's making teachers get burnt out and also students, giving up
100%.
because like the first thing that they are notified as soon as they get into to the classroom at the beginning of the year is okay, we got to cover all this before March for state testing. So
Right.
yeah.
well, One thing I must say, I want to thank you for sharing the, the math moments there that you remember. And I wonder, you had mentioned your big takeaway already here. And I wonder if you can use those two moments as sort of your inspiration on like, how can I do a little bit of that every
Mm-hmm.
day? It doesn't have to be the entire time, but like if
Right.
you can do a little bit of that and do it early in the lesson, I feel
Mm-hmm.
like it's going to really help you, with flipping that class around and really starting to push who has the responsibility. Because your moments that you remember were
Right.
moments that your teacher gave you responsibility.
Right. Right.
Your teacher gave that to you, and but I'm going to also guess that there was probably times where it looked a lot like what you had described in this
Mm-hmm.
particular episode. But if you take that and you go, if that was a moment for me, this is why we named the podcast Make Math Moments, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's all about like, how can I do a little bit of that and still get the result that I'm hoping for, still get to enough of the standards and still, make a good effort here. Because ultimately, if I can get more of my students to engage in my material, engage in the learning earlier in every lesson, I'm going to actually cover more because students will have been doing more of the thinking. And we have a couple episodes we'll share in a follow-up email with you. But one of the episodes that I think would really be helpful for you as kind of a takeaway is episode 158, where it's called "Don't Ditch Your Lesson Model, Reverse It." So that one is a scenario where we're talking about how we can take what we're currently doing and not throw it all out, but just
Right.
think about how we structure it. Think about the order and how we do that. And then there's a second episode, episode 141, and that is called The Transition from Gradual Release to Problem-Based Learning. And I think that could be a really valuable one for you or anyone listening to the podcast who might also be challenged with some of the same challenges that you shared with us here today.
Mm-hmm. Okay, most definitely. Yeah, I'll definitely look. Usually I do I listen to y'all's podcast during my lunchtime. So it's like meditation, or like I turn the lights off in my classroom, and yeah, that's meditation for me.
Awesome.
I love it. I love it. Well, we're so thankful that you had reached out and we had the opportunity to chat with you here today. Definitely keep in touch with us, and
Most
hopefully, if it's
definitely.
okay with you, we'll follow up with you in 9 to 12 months and kind of see where you're at, see where your head's at, where are the gains, where's the new pebbles emerging, and
Right.
hopefully we'll be able to hop on for another catch-up call.
Awesome. Awesome. Sounds good.
All right.
Thank
Thanks so
y'all
much,
so
Diana.
much.
Take
Thank
care.
All
you.
right. Have a great
Okay, have a
day.
good one.
Take care.